Hey, what's going on? Cheap Card Collector here, and today we have a new video, Sports Card 101 for 2025. We did this video last year, and it's basically you want to get back into collecting. It's been 30 years. You see it on social media. You want to know, what is it like today? What's changed? A lot has changed, to say the least. So we do this video every year. Not much has changed since last year, but we did make some tweaks and we did add some more information. So hopefully this is the all-encompassing guide you need to get back into sports cards. So here are the contents. We'll go over sort of the history of sports cards, pandemic impact, which we're a couple years from that, but there's still some impact from that. We'll go through all the sets, what you need to know, where to start, all that stuff. So we'll get right to it. If you like the stuff we do, you like this video, like the video, leave comments, subscribe to the channel. We appreciate your support. We just love the hobby, and we love sharing information as best we can. So, and I'm doing this whole video filter thing, so I might be I'm looking at the video. It's not the best, but work with me. It's all good. So let's start out with the history of sports cards. So these are the eras. So when you think about sports cards, there's broken up eras that people in the hobby really think about collecting. And so we'll go through them. So the first is vintage. So anything pre-1980 is considered vintage, which is a fancy way of saying old. But we're talking old stuff, right? 50s, 60s, 70s, really old cards your grandpa had before card collecting was a thing. Fairly valuable, usually if they're in good condition, which is hard because all those cards were tied in rubber bands and put on bicycles. But that's the vintage era. Modern vintage is a little more up modern. So these are the early 90s, early 80s cards. And you see examples, cards we know, the Jordan rookie, the Jordan Star rookie, a lot of baseball rookies, football rookies. So these cards are not super valuable, but there is some scarcity there. And they start to print more in the mid 80s, but these are what we call modern vintage. The junk wax, now this is where probably, if you're watching this video, you collected, as did I. This is when there were card stores in every other mall, the peak of popularity. Unfortunately, these cards are not worth much. And the first thing people say when I mention, I collect cards, they're like, "Oh, great! All these great rookies from the early '90s." And unfortunately, those are not worth much. There are a few exceptions. I listed some here, but even those are not crazy expensive. They just printed out a ton, and they don't know officially, or they haven't said how many cards are printed. No one knows, but it's rumored to be in the millions. So. All those cards we collect, all those sets we collected, unfortunately, are really just cardboard. There are hidden gems, but unfortunately, most of your cards are worthless. Is the short. So after that, you have the modern set. So when I stopped around '95, unfortunately, that's when card collecting kind of went away. It was a fad, and so cards kept going. They just stopped printing as much. So these cards from '95 to '17 are fairly valuable. There's some of them printed a lot, but they just didn't print it, right? Because we weren't collecting anymore. And so during that time, there are some great rookies you see in the screen here. Stars and goats that we know of were printed here in the modern era. So these can be a good sweet spot. I'll take it to ultra modern. So this is 2017 present. Card collecting was picking up before the pandemic, and we'll talk about it. But the pandemic, like everything else, exploded card collecting. Anything you do at home, no one's traveling, everyone has money. Card collecting went crazy. So they printed in 2021, 22, 23 a ton of cards, and we've kind of, even now, still printing a lot of it. So it's not as bad as junk wax. There's not millions of cards, but as you'll see later, there's just many different types of cards and sets. So, but print run wise, not as bad as junk wax. I see, you see the note junk slab era. We'll get to that in a bit. We'll talk about that. So just a level set. These are the eras of cards. In general, what you have in these era, you kind of gauge value. Unfortunately, most of us, and I'm sure most of you, have a lot of junk wax stuff. It's generally pretty worthless. So the pandemic impact, I didn't update this slide because it's still relevant, but basically this is an example of one card. This is a Luka Doncic Silver Prism rookie. The pandemic basically inflated everything. So if you had friends that collected during the pandemic, you see here in this pricing chart, cards exploded, right? This card was up to $2,500, and today, I believe it's like $300 or $400, right? Or not even that. So a lot of cards. If you look at any card, the whole market overall, this is what it looks like. So fortunately now we're stabilized. We're obviously a few years removed from the pandemic. It's a good time to buy now. If you bought in early 2021, that's just unfortunate. But We all experienced that. So the most common question I get is, well, who are the card companies, right? Oh, I remember Topps and Donruss and Fleer and Upper Deck and Hoops. So generally, there are really two major players. I guess three if you count Upper Deck. It's Panini and Topps. So Panini owns the licenses to NBA and the NFL Player Association. So what that means is fully licensed cards with the player, the team name, and the team logo. For basketball and football, only Panini makes them. So Topps has some NBA cards, but it will say Sacramento without the jersey, without the logo, or without the name Kings. Those are not as valuable, obviously. I mean, they still have some value, but in general, the cards that you want are the Panini brand NFL and NBA cards, and the Topps has a license for baseball, so Topps for Major League Baseball, as well as Upper Deck for hockey. So those are the licensed, what we call licensed cards, and those are the sets you want. They look the best. They're complete. No one wants an unlicensed card in general. Now, some of them look good. Right now, so Fanatics, there's this whole complicated lawsuit right now. So Fanatics basically bought the licenses for basketball, football, and Major League Baseball. And I believe they acquired Topps, and so they're going to continue to print baseball cards. They did not acquire Panini. So Panini does other things. I think they're like a toy company or a candy company. But for now, Fanatics is going to have the license for NBA, NFL, and football. Basketball, football, and baseball. But there's some lawsuits going on, and Panini suing Fanatics, and they're countersuing. So I have no idea where it's going to happen. But basically, Fanatics at some point is going to own the licenses for those major three sports, as well as some other side sports. And will they keep the brands? Who knows? It's all up in the air. So bottom line is, any card up till now, this is what follows. From 25 onward, we'll see. All right, so as I mentioned, license card. So the card on the left, this is a Panini Prism. As I mentioned, baseball doesn't have the license. So you see the Clayton Kershaw card, it says Los Angeles. Doesn't say Dodgers. There's no Dodger logo. It's a nice looking card, but it's not licensed. The card on the right by Topps, you see, is the full team name, team logo, everything. It is the full card. That's from Topps Holiday. So people like the licensed cards. The unlicensed cards still have value. That card on the left is still worth something. It's just, all things equal, license is better. But again, if you want a card, a player, a nice auto from an unlicensed company like Topps or for non-baseball or Leaf's another company. I'm sure some of you remember. You can do that. That's another option too. So I didn't change the slide, but basically the point is, Topps, Donruss, Fleer used to be 3 sets, maybe 4 sets back in the day. Not anymore. There are hundreds or a few hundred of different sets per sport per year. So this is just baseball. And if you see in 2023, there are many more sets to this, but I just put some on the screen. The point is, it's not as simple as before where you buy Topps. You see in the middle of the screen, Topps is a set, but they released Topps Series 1, Series 2, Series 3, Chrome. There are many different sets, and each of these have varying players. Some have rookies, some are just vets or whatever. So the point is, there's a lot of cards. So while the print runs are not high, instead of having 3 cards of Ryan Sandberg in 83, you've got 11,000 unique cards when you count the parallels, which I'll get to. So it's a lot more daunting than before, which means any one card you have probably was not as worth as much as you think, because you're one of many rookies on this slide. And football and basketball are very similar. So here's an example, total unique cards. So I have some random players here. So Andy Van Slyke, the Pirates' great player. So he's got a total of 500 unique cards. So 500 different cards of Andy Van Slyke. 6 rookie cards, and I'm including minor league and college as well. But again, during that time, there were massive print runs, right? So him and Bobby Thigpen, for example, while there's 500 different cards, 250 different cards, there's 5 million of each. So you do the math. Stan Humphries, the Chargers quarterback, I used it in a football example. He's only got 650 cards and 4 rookies. Again, massive print run, so he still has a lot of cards, but he only has 4 rookie cards. Shohei Ohtani, let's fast forward to now. He's been in the league for a while. His rookie card is 2018. I put 2013 because he's got Japanese cards and minor league cards. He has over 21,000 unique cards. That's a lot. And he's not even done playing. And he's got 3,100 different rookie cards. So all those sets I showed you, and within those sets there's different variations of cards, parallels, which I'll explain. He's got 3,100 rookie cards, including minor league and college in Japan. So despite the print runs being lower, there's just so many more types of cards. So again, you can get an Ohtani rookie card. It could be worth nothing. It could be worth a lot. We'll get into that later. Wembanyama is another extreme example. He's only been in the league for 5 years, but they're taking advantage of the hype. He's got 4,000 unique cards. 4,000 unique cards in 5 years, of which 3,400 are from his rookie year. So you can see, while the print runs are lower today, they're just a lot more cards. So it's a lot different. Your one card is probably not as worth as much as you think. Okay, so I talked about parallel. So within a set, let's say you take a Trevor Lawrence card within a set, you've got parallel. So what that means is you have the base card, a regular card of Trevor Lawrence, and then you've got different versions of that same picture, same card, with a different border, different color. And that's what's on the screen here. So for 2023 Prism, every card has one of these versions of that card. So there's a black and red checker Lawrence, there's a black and white checker Lawrence, there's a blue Lawrence, there's a disco, green, green ice, etc. And those with the number, so let's say /400, that means numbered to 400. So those are serial numbered cards. So in this example, there is 400 Pandora Trevor Lawrence cards. And so your card will be numbered 1 out of 400, 200 out of 400. So you know the print run is only 400 and they only made 400 of those, which is great, right? They're more rare, there's less of them, but this is one set. Every set that I showed you on the screen of the hundreds of sets has a checklist like this. Some of them have 5 parallels, some have 50. And that's why every variation of this card, of every player in every set, that's where you get the thousands and thousands of rookie cards, for example. So it's cool on one hand, like if you pull a gold to 10 Prism card, it's obviously valuable and rare because there's only 10 of them, but there's gold to 10s of that player in 100 different sets. So even that, they're not as rare as you think. And the bottom 1 of 1, so those are really great. Every set has a 1 of 1. So there's one Black Star version of every card ever made. I've pulled a 1 of 1 once. It was a Lance Lynn Prism card. It wasn't worth much. I mean, he's a average major leaguer in a non-rookie year. It still went for $100 because it's a 1 of 1. So 1 of 1s are cool, but even that, there are many 1 of 1s. They're not as rare as they seem to be. So this completely changes it. In the old days, you have one card, Ryan Sandberg, 83 tops. I'll use an example. There's one. Nowadays, if you try to pull a card like that, there's 30, 40 of them. So some people like it, some people don't. It's interesting. So here's an example. So that's a Kershaw I showed you earlier. These are the different parallels. Same exact card. You got the blue cracked ice on the top left. You have the snake skin, the gold disco, as we call it, with the circles, the blue laser in the middle, the gold, and then the green disco. So they're cool. They're shiny. They look cool. They're fun. People like to collect all the parallels, as I'm doing with this particular card. Some of these are numbered, some of these are not, and I'll show you. So if you see on the top left, that middle card is 2 out of 10. So it's a serial number to 10. The next 2 cards next to it are not numbered. Not all parallels are numbered. And then the bottom, you see those are numbered to 25, 50, 40. So it's different. It adds some rarity and scarcity to cards, but again, there's so many. Some people love these, some people don't. But that is a reality in today's collecting. So the other thing too is, if you remember this set in particular, this is 1993 Finest Basketball, one of my favorite sets. There are base cards and the refractors, right? So refractors are like the cards that are special variations of the base cards, and they kind of shimmer. So this existed, this concept of parallels, back in Junk Wax era. It was just very rare. In this case, this set had only 2, right? Base cards and refractors. So the card on the right is a base card. The card in the middle and the left is actually the same card. It's just hard to tell that it's a refractor. If you see in the left card over his right shoulder, Derek McKee, you kind of see that rainbow shimmer. A refractor, if you look at it in light, it clearly looks different. It looks a little more shinier. The challenge, though, with these parallels is if you look at the 2 scans, if you're looking at eBay or something, you can't tell, right, whether one's a refractor or not. Do lighting, scanning, photos, etc. So I say that because with the parallels, sometimes it's very obvious, sometimes it's not. You could have a pink prism versus a purple prism, but they look very similar. You could have a refractor versus a non-refractor. It's hard to tell sometimes. So you have to really be careful when you get a card, and you think they label it, but they don't. They don't put snakeskin prism in the back or red prism in the back. Sometimes Topps will put refractor under the card number, but that's rare. Otherwise, you just kind of have to figure it out. So be careful when you look at cards. Whether you have a parallel or not, you may not know. You have to look closely. So relic cards are, this started I think in the late 90s, early 2000s. So basically these are cards with pieces of material in them. In the case here, the Randy Moss on the right has a piece of football helmet. So that's pretty cool. The Kershaw has a piece of base from when they won the World Series in 2020 with the authentication sticker. And then the Trevor Lawrence card there's a NFL player's, I guess, patch, like a piece of material from a jersey. Now, the controversy now is that some of these were worn by players in a game. Some of them were worn by a player in general, or some of them were never worn at all. It was off a jersey from Ross's or something. So you look at the lore, it's a nice sort of patch. It's cool. It's a player's logo. If you read the fine print, it says this enclosed authentic memorabilia is not from any specific game or event. So in other words, he never wore it in a game. He may not have worn it ever ever at all. It's just a relic or a shirt that they picked off in the clothing store. It's not as valuable as, say, the Kershaw, where there's a holographic sticker that authenticates the base came from the Texas Stadium where they won the World Series. And the Randy Moss, the helmet, he actually wore the helmet. I don't have the back, but it says that he wore it. So you gotta be careful. And these are all cool looking. I mean, collecting pieces of stadiums, pieces of the dirt from the stadium, the bases, etc., the helmet. They have all kind of cool relics. Some of them are actually worn by the player or not. So you have to be careful for that. And they're all cool regardless. It's just something to watch out for. And then auto. So you have cards like the Andre Jackson and the Drake London on the opposite sides. Those are autos that were inserted into the packs. So they pre-autograph cards. You pull them from packs. Those are very valuable. In the past, cards like the middle, someone took a random card and got it signed, and then PSA authenticated. I'll get to grading later. In the past, the middle cards were not as valued. No one wanted those sort of custom autos. People wanted the set autos that came in the set. Recently, the hand or manual autos have made a comeback, and those values are actually up. And for example, if I wanted a KD Warriors autograph, it didn't exist. Someone got it on a random card, and now I have it. So the value of the cards that are sort of hand signed, manually signed outside the set, are rising. Probably not as much as the set autos as you see on the opposite sides. The other thing too is you see in the auto, the Jackson and London are sticker autos, right? So if you can see, there's a sticker that they autographed and threw on the card. That means the athlete was given, a stack of stickers to sign. Panini put it in a drawer, and when they reissue cards, they paste it on the card. So the player didn't actually hold and sign the card. They signed the sticker, which the company later put it on the card. On-card autos are much more valuable because that means the player actually held the card, autographed it. They're more expensive. They're nicer. I know I have a friend who's a pretty big snob about sticker autos. But sometimes players don't sign on-card autos. Your only option is the sticker auto, unless you get a manually signed one like the Durant. So that's how autos work. And again, the Drake London is a patch auto, so it's got a relic, jersey, and an auto, and it's numbered. So that's sort of combination of the three things we talked about. All right, so grading. You've probably seen cards that are slabbed or graded. So these are the companies. Basically, there are four main players. PSA is the most widely recognized leader in card grading. They're worth the most. If you see the values of that Luka in the right column, for whatever reason, and don't ask me why, they're worth the most. And I think it's because people have most of their collections of PSA. They know buyers will pay premium for PSA. So PSA is the standard in terms of value. Now, I know a lot of people don't like PSA. They prefer SGC, which is actually was acquired by the same company as PSA. And some people like the way the slabs look. So if you're going for things for your collection, go with the slab you like. Beckett has the nicest slab, or thickest slabs. People like those. CSG just updated their slab. SGC is a nice black sort of tuxedo looking slab. PSA slab is whatever. But if you're grading things to maybe keep the value or sell, PSA is the way to go. And before the pandemic, the pricing of these were crazy, like $100 a card. SG was cheaper. Now they're all about the same. So there's no real difference pricing wise to get a card graded. It depends on the level, how many cards you send, the value. It varies, but it could be as cheap as $20 a card, as much as $100, depending on what you're grading. But if you care about value, PSA is the grading company as of 2025. And then at the bottom, there's some other companies. You'll see slabs. They're not worth as much. People like to use them because they're for companies. Some use AI, some don't. Some have different technologies. So you'll see them in the wild, but the value-wise, they're probably not as much as a raw card. So just keep those in mind. So how are cards graded? What's the criteria? So there's really 4 criteria when the grading companies look at your card. So when you look at a card and you want to grade it and you think you can get a 10 or a 9, this is what you should think about. So surface, pretty simple. Are there scratches, dimples, or other imperfections? It's hard to see online when you look at a card, but when you look at the light, you do see a crease, do you see a dimple? That's probably the thing that catches people the most because the other 3 are a little more obvious. The edges, are they sharp? Black border cards often chip. So those are harder to get good grades. They're valued a little more. Corners, are they sharp? Are they whitening? Are they dented? And then centering. So the centering of the borders, is it centered all around? When you submit a card, never assume it's going to get a 10. I know you look at it and say it's perfect. It's got to get a 10. It's completely subjective. Never submit a card assuming you get a 10. You have to assume, for an ultra modern card, 9 or above. It's not. It's some guy looking at the card with a magnifying glass. There's no technology or AI for the four major companies. And so why would you grade? You can obviously increase the value. So for example, you saw the Luca on the prior page. A raw card could go for 50, but a 10 go for 250. So getting a 10 would 5x the card, for example. But obviously a 5 and 6 is not going to do anything for you. So it could raise the value of the card. It protects it in a sealed slab, so you don't have to put it in a protector or anything. And the label can identify the card, so you know what it is. The cons, it can get expensive if you're talking 20 to 50 a card. You could get a low grade, in which case, what's the point? And it takes up space. People don't think about that. The more slab cards you get, it's just more space than a thin top loader or regular card. So things to consider. Slab stuff you like for your collection, slab stuff you think is going to go up in value. So it's up to your discretion on that. Here's some examples. So the left is a Shohei Ohtani PSA. That's a top Chrome card, so it's got a 9. I submitted it thinking it looked perfect. I still think it does. It got a 9, as I said. The Jefferson, I think I bought that. I didn't grade that with SGC. You see the slab is more, they call it tuxedo black. And SGC uses 0.5 and Beck uses 0.5, like subgrades. PSA only uses whole numbers, which the hobby likes. I don't think the hobby likes the 0.5 or 8.5, 7.5. And then the right is Beckett. So that's a Matt Ryan, which I got for very, very cheap. Beckett has subgrades you see on the 4 criteria. Again, the hobby is mixed on that. Beckett grading is not, it's a thing. It used to be very popular. People don't really grade with Beckett anymore. The card still hold value, though, because at the end of the day, right, it's the card. But that's just a difference between the 3. Okay, so how to buy. So there's different types of ways to buy cards. So back in the day, there's packs and there's boxes. Maybe finance had like a jumbo box or jumbo packs, but essentially it was packs within boxes. Now there are many different types of products to get cards, and there's different pros and cons for it. So hobby boxes are very expensive. They include a full box of cards, kind of what you remember, and they include very exclusive parallels or inserts and guaranteed autographs in the hobby box. The cons are they're very, very expensive. $200 is probably on the low end, depending what you're buying, but they're very expensive. I think I've only bought one hobby box, which was Allen and Ginter, and that cost me $130, which is cheap. Basketball, football is like $1,000 plus. You're never going to make your money back. Rarely ever. You got to pull a really good card to make your money back in a hobby box. Retail boxes are a little easier. So these you'll find at Target, Walmart. They're a little box of cards. On average, maybe 6 packs of 4 cards each, so 24 cards. And you can get some good cards, autos, ones-to-ones, etc. Certain hobby exclusive inserts won't come in there, but you can still get good cards, and it's cheaper, right? So if you just want to have fun, rip a box, pay $20, excuse me, you can do that. Sometimes hard to find in the store, although recently they're kind of just collecting dust. And again, you probably won't get your money back. So think of it as a slot machine, all of this. Anytime you open something, probably losing money, maybe you get lucky, but you're doing it for fun, right? Single packs, they sell single packs, so like 1 pack. They're cheaper, again, probably the same hit rate as retail boxes. Also, cards can get damaged because they ship the pack versus being in a box. Repacks, now this is somewhat controversial. What some people do is they'll buy cards, single cards, they'll put them in packs and sell them to you as sort of like a repack. Like they personally created these packages of cards to sell you. People are mixed on this because a lot of times there are people that say, oh, there's a $1,000 card in one of these repacks, and they sell you 100 repacks and there was no card, right? There's no accountability. Some people do slab mags on Arena Club. You can go online and buy a slab pack. They'll show you the cards that are available in those packs, and they're pretty transparent about it. They're very popular. So it's kind of another form of buying a box or a pack from the company. People are mixed on them. I don't buy them. They're a cool concept because the repackers go and buy singles for the repack. So it kind of creates liquidity. But as a buyer, I wouldn't buy repacks. If you want to, it's fun. They're on eBay. They're at stores, card stores. You can find them all over the place. Singles is what I do most. If you just want a card, you should just buy it, right? Because if you try to buy a box saying, I want to pull this card, it's very, very difficult. There's a big checklist. There's all the parallels. You're probably not getting it. So if you want a card, you just pay for it. you're not going to get a deal mostly, but singles is usually the way to go. And then tops now is in Panini Instant. So whenever there's a special sports moment, like Freddie Freeman's home run or LeBron hitting 50K, Tops and Panini will 48 hours issue a special card commemorating that moment. And you can buy it direct from the site. They offer parallels and special autos, but essentially you're buying a base card. It's kind of fun. Some people think it's a scam, but if you want a card of a special moment, because it only gets issued for 48 hours, and then they don't sell it anymore. But if they sold 50,000 of it, you can easily get one after on eBay. So people are mixed on it. They're kind of cool. I bought one for the Freeman home run. They almost always lose value. Again, it's more for collectors. And special promotions, Lids, the hat store, they had a special Top Chrome set that can only be gotten from Lids if you bought a hat. There are a few instances like that, but generally far and few between. So where do you get these cards? So retail stores, I listed some stores here. Pretty easy to get just a random box or a pack of cards. It's not like the pandemic anymore. So these are some of the places. Barnes & Noble's always has sports cards. Card shops, there are card shops around, not as much as in the 90s, but they are around. You will pay a premium for packs and boxes, but they do have singles and they do charge a little more, but that's the price you pay for. Look at the card, getting to take home that day. So card shops are a little more expensive, but they're a good resource. Card shows still exist. They came back after the pandemic. They're still around, just like you remember it. So they're pretty fun. You get to talk to other people, work with the dealers, trade even, make some deals. eBay's where I buy most of my cards from. That's probably the most popular place. Thousands of cards listed, sold a day. The online marketplace we never had as kids. It's probably the primary place. And then Breaker. So a Breaker is someone will buy a box or a case of cards and they'll sell spots in that break. So for example, they'll buy a case of NBA Prism cards, 12 boxes, and everyone buys a team. And the Breaker online on some sort of streaming service will open the cards, and whatever cards from that team get pulled, you get. So it's fun in the sense that if you don't want the whole box, you can buy a specific team or player. They'll pick your player breaks. You watch someone open a product you probably didn't want to pay $1,000 for, and you get that player. Now, the values of the teams and players are adjusted based on what's in there. So like during Wembanyama's rookie year, the Spurs price was all expensive, right? So it can be fun. It's just like opening boxes. You cannot make money off of breaking. I saw a stat like you lose 97% or 87% of value over time. I believe it. It's fun. It's fun. You get to buy a break, watch some of the cards, and then get in the mail. Make sure you find a breaker that you trust, has a lot of reviews. Most of them are pretty reputable. They don't last long if they're not. So it's fun. But again, not a way to make money. You can find them on TikTok. You can find them on Fanatics Live, whatnot, YouTube, as well as online auctions. So online auctions, someone just has a singles and say, I'm selling this card, and everyone bids on a live stream service like whatnot or Loop. I do that a lot. You can find values. Be careful, though. A lot of people will pay more than the card's worth. They just get caught up in the hype. And the last one, just on X, Facebook groups, Instagram, TikTok, you will find deals. People are trying to sell cars. They want the money. They don't want liquidity. They will sell cards for cheap. They will sell car on lots for deals. You will find a lot of deals online. So if you're brave enough, and I'll talk about that later, how to not get scammed, you can find cards there. So protecting your cards, another question I get, how do you keep your cards? So all cards should be in a penny sleeve, unless it's just a common card. You can get 100 for $1, which is why they're called penny sleeves. Back during the pandemic, they were like $5, so they were not penny sleeves. They are now. Typically, you want to put a card in a penny sleeve and put that in a top holder. That's sort of the way you protect it. The penny sleeve protects the surface, and the top loader protects it from getting dented. Magnetic holders are also good. They're like hard plastic with held out by a magnet. Thicker cards, this is good for as well. There are varied cards of thickness. We talked about the relic cards. There are some really thick ones, and there's some thin cards. So make sure the top loader or the mag holder matches the thickness of the card you need. Screw-down holders, popular in the junk box era. Do not use screw-down holders. They ruin the cards. They flatten them. They alter them. Any cards you have in those, take those out now. They're terrible. And unfortunately, we all used them for our best cards back in the day. Not a good idea. It ruins the cards. And then team bags. Sometimes I put my really good cards in a penny sleeve and a top loader in a team bag, just to protect it. How you store it, card boxes. They have custom card boxes like you remember. Any other boxes you can. Just care about the lighting. Especially if you like to display your cards, if there's an auto, the sunlight, the natural light will fade it. So you kind of got to balance between, I want to see my cards versus protect them from fading. So as I mentioned, be careful of scammers. There are a lot of scammers out there. Misleading or false listings on eBay. Sometimes they'll make a rookie card, again, like a reprint of it, and someone on eBay will say, "Oh, it's his rookie card," but you can't tell without looking at the back, and they won't show it to you. So just make sure you look at false listings. eBay 101 means it's the only one on eBay. It's not a one of one. Unfortunately, people try to do that, so be careful. Counterfeits. So very popular cards like the Jordan rookie, the Curry rookie, and the Brady rookie. A lot of counterfeits even back in the day. Just be careful. There's resources online to tell you how to spot a fake of those cards. I mentioned repacks again. Some people love them. Just be careful who you buy from. Make sure they're reputable and that they have a lot of good reviews and people actually get the hits. They may not. And then finally, if you ever buy a card on Instagram or Facebook or any, even in person, just use when you use PayPal or Venmo. There's a feature called Goods and Services or Purchase Protection. You basically pay 3% extra, but it protects you as like you're buying a goods and service. So if it doesn't come through, you can potentially get your refund. Friends and family means there's no tax. You don't pay 3%, but you can't have any recourse if you get screwed. So people say, "Oh, let's pay me friends and family." Don't do it. Don't ever do it, unless they're actually a friend or a family. All right. So where to start? We've come full circle. So the first thing is set a plan, right? If you think about everything we talked about, collecting cards now is like stocks or any other investment. There's a market, there's information, there's liquidity. It's not like before where you're reading a Beckett magazine to determine price. There is an actual price set by the market. So you need a plan. Are you collecting? Just collecting for fun? Don't care about value? Are you investing? Who are you going to buy? You can't pick a player and say, "I'm going to buy that player." There's thousands of cards of that player. So what is your plan? What are your goals? That's the first thing you need to do. Find your old stuff. Now, again, as I mentioned, junk wax stuff is usually worthless, but you'd be surprised. There are a few exceptions, and people have found cards from the 70s or 60s, even the early 2000s, that are valuable. So start with your old stuff. That's your starting point. Stick to a budget. Now, again, you might have seen cards selling for $1 million out there, which is true. What is your budget? Stick to your budget because it can dovetail and you can spend more or less, whatever. What is your budget and stay with it? That's very important. The value, as I mentioned, so Beckett magazines exist, but they're not used ever. They're fun as kids. It tells you how much your card is, but that's just someone at Beckett telling you it's worth $50. Now, as they say, it's valuable only as much as someone's willing to pay for it. So using eBay, researching on 130 points on the website, Card Ladder, that will determine your price, and it goes up and down in real time, which is kind of fun, but also risky. This one's very important. Player performance doesn't equal value. So people think, "Oh, Mahomes with the Super Bowl cards are going up." A lot of times the value of a player is already built in with hype. So you'd be surprised, a lot of backup quarterbacks in the NFL are actually pretty pricier than you think because people are already gambling that they're going to become a starter and win a lot of games. So when Mahomes won the Super Bowl, I think his cards went down a bit 2 years ago because people already baked in him as the next Brady. So the win did nothing. In fact, it went down. So just remember that very rarely. Now, if a player comes out of nowhere, maybe the value will go up in the short term. But usually people are speculating, they're gambling. The performance doesn't really matter. Key players. So there are some positions and some players that people care about in the hobby and people don't. So in football, quarterbacks. It's all about the quarterbacks. Running backs and receivers kind of making a comeback or a rise in popularity. People still collect them. But value-wise, they're nowhere near the quarterbacks because quarterbacks are the quarterbacks, right? They're the best position, but they also play the longest. Running backs, by the time they're 28, are washed up, so you're on to the next. So quarterbacks are more collectible. Wings in basketball, centers, big men, people generally don't collect. And then baseball, power hitters, flashy players like Judge and Mookie and Ohtani, people love those. Bryce Harper, but then other pitchers, right? Even like Paul Skeens is an exception, but like Clayton Kershaw, Max Scherzer, Chris Sale, not as expensive as you'd think, despite the fact that they're surefire Hall of Famers. Well, not Chris Sale, but the others, not as valuable. People just don't like pitchers. People don't like non-QBs. So keep that in mind. If you love those players, good for you. You can collect them cheaper. But if you're looking for value and investing, just keep that in mind. Time in the market is very interesting, as you know. As I mentioned, player performance doesn't equal value, but hype does. So for football, for example, in the summer, cards go up a ton. When the season starts in September, ironically, they go down because everyone is speculating who's going to be the star quarterback, who's going to do this, do that. And when the week one happens and they don't, cards go down. So in football, you should buy in this right after the Super Bowl and before the draft. There's a small window for football. That's when you buy. During the draft and then summer you sell, and then during the season you buy. So there's a cycle for all the sports when you should buy and sell, but it's essentially preseason you buy, during the season you sell in the postseason because everyone's thinking about it. Prices come down, then you buy again. That's the cycle for all sports. And then Hall of Fame announcements. A lot of baseball collectors love Hall of Fame players. So once a player starts to trend towards the Hall of Fame, like Freddie Freeman, Mookie Betts, cards start to go up, and that's baked in already. Some cards like players like Jose Ramirez or Chris Sale, borderline, people are already starting to buy up because they think they're going to make it. If they retire today, they're not making it, but there may be a season or two with Paul Goldschmidt. So time that as well. Fees are a big thing. If you think about the selling fees, I mentioned PayPal purchase protection, goods and services. eBay charges 13% on all your sales. You got taxes you got to pay, all the materials. The fees kill you, right? So if you buy a $20 card and it goes with 30 and you sell it, you're like, great. But after you take all the fees away and all the taxes you paid, you might not have made anything. So the margins are very slim. It's the reality of the hobby. Just keep the fees in mind. And finally, have fun. I mean, it's so much more interactive with social media and just different products than it was in our day. There's so much more you can do. It should be fun, right? Some people treat it as an investment. Fine, that's on them. But this should be a fun thing to do. I love it. It's so much fun. So have fun with it. Set your goals. Be realistic. Do your research. Keep getting educated. And just have fun with it. And if you want kids to get into it, it has to be fun, right? They're not going to collect it if it's not fun. So that's the video. Hopefully this was very helpful. You're getting back into it. I'm going to do this every year with things that change, but by and large, for the past few years, this is what it's like. It's very different than we were kids. The hobby is always evolving. Companies are buying, licenses, whatever. So we'll see. Who knows what happens this year? Actually, I think I have one more slide. No, I don't. My prediction for this year, I think cards generally go down over time because as a player gets released, there's more and more sets, more and more cards, more and more supply. Aside from a few exceptions like Curry, LeBron, Mahomes, Brady, the GOATs, I think cards over time go down. That's fine. If you're collecting, who cares, right? Just keep that in mind that when you collect, if you want a card, don't buy it right away. Wait for it to come out a bit. Wait for the market to settle. You have to be strategic to save to maximize your funds and maximize how you use your money. So that's it. Hope you like that. Like the video, subscribe. We love doing this stuff, and I'll catch you later. Take care.